Hello, everyone. I hope everybody is doing very well out there. This is, of course, the Unfound Live Show for August 14th. Actually, August 14th, 2023. So I can't believe it's already been almost 2 weeks since my birthday. Cannot believe it. But I hope everybody's doing well. I hope everybody had a great week since last Monday. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my week since you saw me last. I, of course, have a fantastic, spectacular, stupendous agenda for you tonight. Got a few stories, true crime stories, news that I want to go through. It's going to take up most of the time tonight, things that don't have anything to do with Unfound. There were actually a couple news stories from last week that didn't get to, so I'm carrying them over to this week, which I guess when it comes to making an agenda makes it easier for me. And we'll see what else pops up. I have a couple questions to answer from a couple people. And of course, if you feel so inclined, please send me your questions. Just post them right in the chat there, whether you are on Facebook or on YouTube. And of course, before we get started, I want to remind everybody, thumbs up if you're on YouTube, and whatever you can do on Facebook would be fantastic as well. And as you can see, we got the what are those? The little caption here, the little picture at the bottom of the screen. If you like what we do here, if you like what Unfound has done over the past almost 7 years, you enjoy the content, if you find it informative, please consider becoming a Patreon member at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, or you can hit the join button below on YouTube or on PayPal, paypal.me/Unfound Podcast. Let's see who's in here now that we're about 3 minutes into the show, and then just go through a couple things that have gone on with me since last Monday. Nephew Charles, what's going up? Yes, I did notice that you were not in here last week. Missed you, Charlie. Karen, everything, Melody, Charlotte, Valerie, Deborah. Yeah, missed last week. Had to work unexpectedly. Hate when that happens, Charles. I hate when I have to work unexpectedly too. Mark, what's going on? And Unfound Kathy. Hello, Kathy. Good to see you. Stacy. Cherie. What's going on, Cherie? Jasmine. Got some Facebook users in here. Suzanne. Spleen Girl. Good to see you. Hope you're doing well out there. So last week, there's Twinkle. I was wondering where you were, Twinkle. Hello, Twinkle. Hello. Since we got together last time, I went and played in a one-round disc golf tournament on Saturday morning. Got up fairly early and teed off at about 8 a.m., and we got done maybe 10 after 10, quarter after 10. And even then, it was even only a quarter after 10 in the morning, and it was still completely blazing out there. I really, for groups that teed off later, crazy. It was just crazy. And it was starting to sprinkle a little bit when I was getting off the course, and it was getting a little windier than it had been to that point. So I was really happy to get off the course when I did. How did I play? Okay. Didn't end up winning my division, but that was no surprise. But I did okay. And even though I really have not been practicing quite a bit since I got back from Pennsylvania, But I do hope to go throw a little bit, maybe tomorrow, at least a couple times this week to work on a few things. But it was good to get out, go over to Cliff Stevens Park, and did okay. My brother Brian showed up, walked the course with me, and he was felt like I did. It was 9 a.m, and it was already pretty miserable out there. So got a little disc golf in. The next disc golf tournament that I will be in will be a big one, and it will be over in Orlando. And I haven't played in Orlando since Worlds in 2021, and that did not go so well. So we shall see. Playing in the Southeastern, what do they call it? Southeastern Amateur Championship. This has kind of been an annual thing since, I think, 2013. So this is like the 10th year or 10th anniversary or however they do that. And I will play one round on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. So it is Labor Day weekend. And a lot of people will be there. Probably 300 some players will be there. And looking forward to it. I've not played in that tournament since 2019 and really did not do very well. So we shall see. So I got some weeks to work on some things, but I'm really feeling confident in my game. No yips going on out there. Feeling very relaxed. The disc is going pretty much where I want it to go. I think it's just a matter. I just haven't been throwing much. When I was up in Pennsylvania, I went and threw twice. And before this past weekend, I only threw once. So I got to get out there a little bit. But I've been busy. So what are you going to do? So who else has been in here? Who is in here? Betty, hello to you. Patricia, recent guest Patricia, what's going on? Good to see you. Here, hand pinky waving. That's funny. The real. Who else? Got over something. Tracy, how are you? Everybody's saying hi back and forth to each other. I love that. Also, probably this fall, I don't know if it's going to get in the way of doing the podcast right at this moment, but Brother Brian and I, that would be, everybody knows now in the chat that Charles is my nephew. That would be Charles's uncle. My brother, Brian and I are planning an RV trip to Key West. I think I told, I've mentioned on this live show that my brother and his wife got an RV, must have been back in March or April, sometime in there. And they've already done a huge trip. They went the whole way up to Maine and from Florida and came the whole way back down. They must have been gone like a month. They had a fantastic time. The RV ran really well, and it's a really nice one. I mean, I got to see it like right before they went on their trip in July, and I've not driven it. I've not ridden in it yet or anything. But it's really, really nice. It's about 10 years old, but you'd never know that. And it's like 37 feet long. It has like big, like 18-wheeler tires on it and everything. I mean, it's really, really nice. I'm very happy for them. They went out for this month and had a great time. Very happy for them. They've been talking about doing this for a long time. And I know just my brother, Brian, I mean, he's been talking about doing this and I've known him since 1994. And it seems like since I've known him in 1994, he's been talking about this. So finally, all these years later, be able to doing it, he's just ecstatic. And I think it's going just as well, if not better, than he could have ever hoped. And I think his wife, Laureen, is having a great time too. So I'm very happy for them. But he has talked to me about going down to Key West. I've never been to Key West. Of course, we covered a disappearance down there in Key West, a Marathon, Florida, of Jennifer Perry. But, that's a decent, even though we're in Florida, that sounds like it's still a pretty good drive because we got to go the whole way down to Miami, and then go out on the Highway 1 the whole way out there. and going down to the southernmost point, at least in the contiguous United States. So I've never ridden in an RV before. So he's mentioned that to me. So I don't know when it's going to happen and how long we're going to be gone and all of that. But I will let you know. Really don't know if it'll get in the way of podcasting stuff or not. Obviously, it'll take some time, but maybe I can get, kind of work ahead or something like that. So just wanted to bring all of that up to you. Twinkle says a trip to Key West would be awesome. Charles says that ought to be a fun trip. It should. Charlotte says it sounds like fun. Yes, I think it should be. Brian and I have gone on many road trips together. We did a whole Southwest United States tour when he had like this little conversion van back in 1998 before I moved to Las Vegas. So actually, I was living in Pennsylvania, flew out there to Salt Lake City, where he was living at the time, went down to Las Vegas, Arizona, all over that area. And then it was just months later that I actually moved to Las Vegas. And then, of course, one of the speaking engagement that I had in Louisiana, he went with me on that. And so we've gone on some road trips, and he was used to be a truck driver. So this will be another one of those times. And now in an RV, which should be really good. Just make sure you pee before the 7 Mile Bridge. You will have a blast. Thank you. I'll got to write that down, maybe, Stacy. Make sure you pee before the 7 Mile Bridge. That's funny. Well, you should know, Stacy, that this RV has a shower and toilet and everything in it. Can you use that stuff while it's moving? I don't know, but maybe that could be a savior just in case. Otherwise, as you know, I've talked about my singing is going well. Voice is doing well. I've kind of torched it a couple times in the last, month or something. Maybe you've been able to tell even in the podcast itself when I've recorded that maybe my voice didn't sound 100%, but my voice is doing well now. I'm doing these exercises every day and continuing to progress on this. And I do absolutely hope to make it to a karaoke night somewhere here soon. Too bad none of you live close by. So that's going well. In fact, I did my exercises today while I was watching Hawaii Five-0. I've gotten into on Paramount Plus watching the old Hawaii Five-0s with Jack Lord. I love them. They're spectacular. Early 70s Hawaii with the old cars and everything. I just love it. So I will have it on mute. And so I just have like the closed caption on. And I'll be doing my exercises just standing right, because you got to do these exercises standing up for proper breathing. And I'll just stand right in front of the TV and do my exercises. I'll have my headphones on and then watching Hawaii Five-0. This is what I do. So I've already done that today. And usually the exercises take about 50 minutes. So I'm devoting 50 minutes a day, probably at least 5 days a week to this. And I certainly can notice some big changes. Also, one more thing that I finally did for the first time. Wow, it's been a while. I went and actually did a little target practice on, was it Friday morning? I think it was Friday morning, the day the podcast comes out. Went out Friday morning, did a little shooting over at where I am a member. And being that I'm a member, I really should go there more often. But went in and got a little target practice in. I can get in and out of there pretty quickly. But I shot my Glock 19, which is right here. That is my carry gun. And then I also did some shooting with my Glock 43, which is a single stack 9mm gun, very compact. I will admit that that's the gun I carry with me when I'm out on the disc golf course. And then I also got in a little shooting with my Kel-Tec Sub 2000, which is a foldable rifle with a 16-inch barrel. And for the first time, I was shooting it out to 150 feet, so 50 yards. And even with just no scope, no red dot or anything, just using what they call the iron sights on it, man, that thing shoots well. Man, is it accurate at 150 feet, even though, like I said, I'm only using the iron sights. So I managed to get in probably overall shot about 150 bullets, probably about 60 to 70 with the Glock 19, probably about 40 with the Glock 43, and probably about 30 more with the Sub 2000, something like that. And it all went really well. Pretty good shot, dare I say. And those are three of the guns I have. And for any of you gun people out there, I also have, although I haven't shot it in a while, I have an AR-15. It's an LE 6920. It's a Colt with a scope on it. It's over in the closet over there. And I also have a Vepr 12 gauge semi-automatic shotgun that is actually made in Russia. So those are the 5 guns that I have, but 3 of them I shoot fairly often, like the ones that I just did this past Friday. So finally got out and did that. It was like a promise I made to myself. Man, once I come back from Pennsylvania, I got to get back into that, because that is a diminishing skill for all of you self-defense people out there. Just don't buy a gun and, well, I'm going to carry it. You got to go to the range. You got to feel very comfortable with it. It has to become second nature to you. And because that will be the tool that may save your life one of these days. So you don't want to be fumbling around with it like it's your first time. So I always feel good then when I go to the range, even though I haven't been there in a while, that everything still seems very natural to me. And, and nothing feels clumsy and nothing like that. I go out there and I know everything. I could use my guns probably with my eyes closed, and I'd still be pretty smooth at, loading, unloading, and holding it and everything else. Of course, you have to open your eyes to shoot. Rockford says, I'm overdue for the range myself. You are inspiring me to get back there. You got to do it. Got to do it. I'm not saying you need to go every week, but really, I should be going being that I have this membership where I just pay once a year. I should be going once a week. The tough thing for me is getting up in the morning, because if you're going to go out there, it's outdoors and it can get busy. And the way to avoid that is get there first thing. And that's usually the thing that gets in the way of me going out there, that I have a hard time rolling out of bed sometimes. Same goes for confession. We'll see which I get to first. You know what? Having been a Catholic at one time, Rockford, I would say just go to the range. So those are some of the things that went on with me since you saw me last. Of course, we also got out an episode this Friday, the disappearance of Ilea Boomer, that I'll be talking about here in a little bit. But really, I'm going to start off the true crime part of the live show tonight. Once again, if anybody has any questions that you'd like to ask me, please just put them in the chat, and I'll see what I can do about answering the question. And for all of you who are watching on YouTube, don't be afraid to hit the super chat button and contribute while the live show is going on tonight. I'm going to answer this first question, and it comes from Charlotte, who is actually in the chat tonight. There she is. So, Charlotte, I'm going to answer your question right now. Charlotte asks me, Ed, do you look in newspapers or online for articles about the missing person when you're working on the podcast? I do. And I will tell you that this is something that has become really more and more important for me as I've gone from year 2 to year 3 to year 4 to year 5 to year 6, coming up year 7. This has gotten more and more important to me. And it's the very reason that I have a newspapers.com account and that I use really very extensively. I'm certainly getting my money's worth there for sure. The reason I think it's become more and more important to me is because I realize more and more it's interesting to go back and see what the articles were that were written about the disappearance at the time. Because over time, people's memories change. And what was the reaction? What was the media reaction? What was said? And, that was very useful, maybe very recently, like with Paige Renkowski. Was a lot written about her disappearance at the time. Of course, I posted those articles because I can snip them and download them. You can find them on Unfound's website, the unfoundpodcast.com. Very interesting to me to read what people had to say at the time. And it was also very interesting that the guest for that episode, Paige's sister, was in one of the pictures that I found from back then, in addition to Paige's fiance at the time. In fact, Paige's sister, the guest, and this fiance were in the picture together, which was, interesting. But it's, you even go back to the 90s, 80s, 70s. You have to find some of these things because sometimes just doing a search in Google and trying to find articles on, from way back, they don't pop up. You have to specifically go to newspapers.com, and maybe there's some other sites like newspapers.com out there, but just to see what everybody's saying, and maybe you find the opposite. Maybe you find I will find that no articles were written. That's common. That happens more than you realize, that a disappearance happens and I can't find anything that was written about the people at all. And I think for the most recent Found episode, where I covered the disappearance and discovery of the three women, Ariel Castro kidnapped, one of the main points I made for all you Patreon people and YouTube members anyway, is that how much was not written about those three missing women over the years? Hardly anything. So our memories can become distorted. We know, being that all of you are into true crime, I'm sure you heard about Ariel Castro, and it was this big thing, and how these women were found, and how the one woman ended up having a child. She, of course, was raped by Ariel Castro. And you think, man, this was this big story. These women go missing and everything. But when you actually go back and look at the media coverage between when they went missing and when they were discovered, not much. So this really keeps things in perspective for me. Of course, it runs the gamut. Some of the disappearances that we've covered had nothing written about them. Then you have like a Paige Renkowski, or of course, all the articles that I snipped out when we did the disappearance of Keith Call and Sandra Haley. A lot written about them over the years. I clipped those out from newspapers.com, posted them, because you can't see them if you're not a newspapers.com member. So I do. It's a very important, it's a great question, Charlotte. I don't know if I've gotten that question before. It's a good one. I thank you for it. And yes, newspapers, online articles, absolutely important, because sometimes what the guest is telling me may be different than what was written at the time of the disappearance. So then I can go to that article and say, well, this was written at the time. Was this the truth? What changed? And we can work or, iron some of these things out. Before we ever do an official interview. So it's become an integral part. I don't know what other podcasters do. Of course, I am one who covers a lot of much, much older disappearances than I think anybody else. So maybe that's not as relevant to the work that other YouTubers or podcasters are doing. But for a podcast like Unfound, where the average age of a disappearance we covered is like 22 years old, it's absolutely important. And I know that I get a lot out of it. Betty asks, I know that you learn new things every day, but which missing persons episode has taught you the most about what is best to do and best not to do, and why? Betty, that is a hard question to answer. I don't want to give so much of a political answer where, I learned something for every disappearance. I know that sounds very political, but it is kind of true. That every disappearance that we feature on Unfound, I think I do take at least one new piece of information about learning about disappearances and understanding. I'd like to think that I take a little piece from everyone. It might be hard sometimes to actually pick it out, but maybe subconsciously that's happening. If you were to ask me specifically, for example, about the disappearance that we just covered this past Friday with Aaliyah Boomer, this is the first time I think that we've really had a chance to talk about a non-straight relationship where, two women in a relationship, one allegedly, leaves and goes missing, and get to compare that to all of the straight relationships that we've covered that have similar facts. And so we start thinking about it. Does it matter? Does it matter if it's a straight couple or a homosexual couple? Does that matter? Does it matter if it's two women, two men? And so certainly that's what I'm going to be taking away from me from Friday's episode. And I'm sure, once again, if we were to go back, I could pick out, specific thing, but that's just hard to answer, Betty, in the moment. But trust me, I'm trying to learn things every day about disappearances. Kristen, you are very, very generous. Thank you for the super chat contribution. Thank you for that. I cannot thank you enough for the super sticker. Thank you so much. All right, let's go up. Speaking of this past Friday's disappearance, let's go to the poll. And let me see what the results were. And of course, this week's poll was fairly easy to write. It was simply, does Kim, who was Aaliyah's girlfriend, does Kim know what happened to Aaliyah Boomer? And in the discussion group, 80% of the people have answered yes. 20% have answered no. Can't say I'm too surprised by that. Now, if you're wondering what the think tank had to say about that, and if you'd like to become part of the think tank, that is right there at the bottom of the screen right there. Support Unfound at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast and sign up at the appropriate level to become part of the think tank that we do on Sunday evenings. Everybody who's a part of it loves it. You get to have a real deep discussion with other listeners, and I lead the discussion. In the think tank, I wouldn't say it was as clear as 80-20, although there were a couple people who thought that Kim did not have anything to do with Aaliyah's disappearance. It was probably more like 60-40. 60% of the members thought that Kim knew what happened and 40% did not. But it was certainly not 100%. Now, you may be wondering, well, what do you think, Ed? Well, I wrote a blog. I write a blog at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. And where I do, at some point in that blog, reveal what I think happened, and I explain how I got to that conclusion. And I always try to devote at least 3,000 words to the topic. So, it's not like I just write, well, here's what I think, but boom, I'm done. It's pretty easy for me to put together 3,000 words to kind of flesh out some of these disappearances. You should know that nothing we ever do in the think tank or even in the blog adds any more facts. All the facts that you ever want to hear about any disappearance that Unfound covers is always in the episodes. I don't withhold anything. So everything we do in the think tank, everything that I do in the blog at Patreon is just insight and analysis of those facts. And I have to tell you, I came to the conclusion that Kim absolutely does know what happened to Aaliyah. But what happened? Hard to say. We could probably visualize a lot of different scenarios where Kim would know what happened, but that doesn't necessarily mean she was the instigator of it. But for me, I just can't disconnect. Is there a difference in disappearances between straight couples and gay couples? We just don't have a large enough data set yet. But here's what I think I know. If Kim's name had been Ken and everything else was the same, I think everybody would be thinking that Ken was responsible for Aaliyah's disappearance. Doesn't mean she is. It's just an opinion. It's just a theory. Very well could be that 8 years ago, and it's going to be 8 years tomorrow, coincidentally. It very well may be that she had nothing to do with it. But the way the facts stand 8 years later, just can't avoid that. It just, if you start, ruling out people under these circumstances, then what are you really saying? It's hard to say. So I came to the conclusion that Kim knows what happened, although she might not have been the instigator of it. And if you'd like to read that, once again, right down there at the bottom of the screen, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Let's see whatever. Once again, Kristen, thank you very much. Hitting the super chat button like you have. Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. Betty says, when you stop learning is when you stop being as good as you are at what you do. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Betty. Appreciate it. Lisa, I totally lost track of time. I'm so late. Hello, all you good people. And Lisa's using the heavy metal emoji. Rock on to you, Lisa. As I continue to say, when it comes to the live show and everything else, I'm the only person who isn't allowed to be late. Kristen asked, do you still sell your books? I've kind of taken the books off the market, Kristen, because I just have not been able to keep up with them. I would love to get back into them, but they take a lot of work. And there's so many other things that I'm doing now with Unfound that we've just gotten so behind. I think if I could find somebody to do them and do the transcribing and everything else for a decent price, I would love to do that, but at this point, it's going to be very, very expensive to get back caught up to 7 years into Unfound. So for now, I've just kind of taken them all off the market. And if anybody wants them, though, you can email me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. And I certainly do have some hard copies right here in my condo. And Coffee says, hello, Coffee, by the way. What's going on, Coffee? Coffee thinks that Kim knows what happened to Ilea. Rockford says, the blog post was an excellent analysis of the case, yet I still find myself on the fence. For me, it's Kim's age, her oh-so-casual indifference, and the disposal difficulty that leaves me wondering. I get that, Rockford. All I would say is, being that I live in a, even though technically it's not an apartment building, it's a condo building, where each of these units is owned. It's not being rented, although I am a renter, but I'm not renting from the building company. I'm actually renting from the person who owns this condo. I know that I could go down from, here on the 8th floor, take the elevator down to my car and never be seen. Now, there are video cameras in here, but, not seen by anybody. So, maybe getting a body out of an apartment building isn't as hard as we think. Maybe. Kathy is talking to Rockford about their different opinions. Kristen, if you want to email me, thank you. I look forward to that. And I know I have multiple copies of all the books that have been done. Patricia, I'm not so sure. I don't think Kim killed her, but she might have heard rumors later on and hadn't said something. Could be, Patricia. How many books are there, Betty? 7 or 8 total. I think, Betty, 7 or 8. So that is the disappearance of Ilea Boomer. I will, of course, try my best to stay in contact with her aunt Tasha. And, hopefully something will happen there. We're always hoping for that. And dare I say, we've had some successes this year where 4 disappearances that have been covered this year have been resolved one way or another. So that was Ilea Boomer, and I thank her aunt Tasha for appearing. While I'm at it, before I get into some non-unfound stuff, I just want to give all of you an updated. Hey, there's Marty. Hello, Marty. I just want to give all of you an updated schedule, what we'll be doing for the rest of August and then even into September. Of course, this Friday, we will be covering another disappearance. I will be talking about it at the end of the live show. August 25th, so a week and a half from now, will be the next update episode. We're due. Seems like I just did one, right? And then a lot to talk about, by the way, in the update section. And then September 1st will be the 7th anniversary episode. And if you are new to Unfound, you should know that what I do on the first Friday of September, which technically I think it was September 2nd of 2016 when this podcast got started. On the first Friday of every September, I consider that to be the anniversary. So I will replay the interview that I did with Mary Lyle. And in addition, I'll come up with some new commentary to add to it. It'll be the original interview, but everything else in the 7th anniversary episode will be new. And I'll figure out something to talk about. Of course, that's not very hard for me to do. And then September 8th and September 15th surely will be disappearances. In fact, it would not surprise me if the interviews for those episodes that won't be coming out until the 8th and 15th of September will, I might be getting those interviews done within the next week. So we will be well ahead there, but we'll just have to see. In addition, I'm now ready to reveal the secret episode. I've mentioned this a couple times, that I have this idea to do kind of a secret episode, and it's going to be just for Patreon and YouTube members. So if you're going to want to listen, if you want to listen to it, you're going to have to sign up at patreon.com, or you'll have to hit the join button below here on YouTube to take part, to be able to listen to it. Given that I've been doing this Found series for a few months now, I'm going to do an episode where I go over all of the unfound disappearances that have been resolved one way or another. And I'll be going through, probably going to be like, it's going to probably be a long episode. I might have to split it into two parts, because there have been quite a few of unfound disappearances that have been resolved one way or the other. So, I'll do a very, very, very miniature version of the Found episodes where I, like I've done Brandon Lawson and Elizabeth Smart, J.C. Dugard, Titanic, Ariel Castro, kidnappings. I'm going to do a very miniature version for all of the unfound disappearances that have been resolved. So I will be talking, and you're probably wondering, because, I've gotten this question. What kind of put this on my mind is that just within the last few months, I've been asked, well, how many of unfound's disappearances have been resolved? How many have been solved? And what is that? And I start thinking, well, maybe I need to check into that. And while checking into that, maybe I can make a very special episode out of it. So we're going to go back, and I'm going to talk about Zoe Campos and Esther Westenbarger and Tom Brown and Bo Mann and Brandon Roberts and, many of these others that have been resolved one way or the other. Because they don't get, they were mentioned in the update episodes at one time or another, but they're no longer mentioned in the update episodes because, it's not an update. It was resolved, and so there's really no more updates. So for all of you Patreon members and YouTube members, remember, it's not just good enough to be a YouTube subscriber. If you're going to want to listen to this, you will have to hit the join button below and be a member of this channel. It's only $3 a month to be able to partake in this. And I think, it'll be interesting. And I'll just probably do it the way I do the update episode. We'll just go back to the beginning and just do chronologically the way that they have been covered on Unfound, working our way the whole way up to the present, but just talking about those disappearances that have been resolved to certain points. I realize something like Tom Brown still kind of up in the air. Still, it will be included. So that is going to be the special episode. And I anticipate that it will come out right around when the 7th anniversary episode comes out, somewhere around when the update episode comes out or the 7th anniversary episode comes out. Of course, I will still do a Found episode for this month. And of course, an Unfound Now episode. I have a lot to do. I guess what I'm saying is for the rest of this month of August, I have a lot to do. What's everybody saying here? Marty says, gotta love a twofer. You're welcome, Marty. Puma, that's going to be a good episode. Looking forward to hearing it. Very good, Puma. Good to see you. And Brockford's still talking back and forth to Kathy. Totally fine. They're having a discussion there. All right, let's go to some some non-unfound news. And I want to start with this because there was a resolution to this. There was a resolution to this disappearance. This comes to us from Oregon. Missing McKenna Riley, a 40-year-old Oregon speech teacher, was last seen in April, disoriented and naked at a rural construction site, according to her family, which suspects foul play and is asking for anyone who knows anything to speak with authorities. Hours before she vanished, a work crew found her confused at their job site in Blue River, about 150 miles south of Portland. She told the police she was scared of something, she said. She said she couldn't go home. She had nowhere safe to go, so she drove there. Now the family says that a photo obtained by Fox News Digital shows an unidentified man who tried to access her storage unit in Phoenix, Oregon, not Phoenix, Arizona, Phoenix, Oregon, sometime after she disappeared. The image was captured by a keypad camera at Riley's storage unit. After failing to gain entry to her unit, the man left. The Lane County Sheriff's Office is aware of this photograph and is actively investigating its relevance to her case. Given the sensitive nature of this active investigation, there's not additional information that can be provided at this time. Investigators told the family that Riley appeared to have been roofied or on a lot of acid when law enforcement arrived at the construction site, Stepp said. However, in a public statement, the Lane County Sheriff's Office said only that the missing woman was possibly suffering from a mental health crisis. At the time she vanished, Riley had an Arkansas-bound plane ticket and plans to visit a friend, according to her sister. Riley, originally from Pennsylvania, told relatives she wanted to move back because she didn't feel safe out there in Oregon. She has now been missing for 4 months. Now, Riley's estranged former boyfriend has been ruled out as a suspect, despite a history of domestic violence between them and an active no contact order after passing but he's passed a polygraph. It was his ex and former mother-in-law who first reported Riley missing, she said. Police found Riley's phone, car, fresh groceries, and pet dog Hilo at her home. Searches later found a bag of clothes in the woods, but no further signs of Riley, according to her sister. Now, it's a long article, but now there is a follow-up to this, and this just happened today, is that McKenna Riley was found deceased. And she was found, I did not have a chance to do a map on it to see where she lived at the time compared to where she was found. She was found in some state park or national park or something in Oregon. Was she found in a body of water? But she has been found. She is deceased. And I guess they'll eventually try to figure out, if they can, but that may take some time. So, she is deceased. And so this happened in April. And what are the odds that the day that this live show where I plans to talk about it, she has been discovered deceased. And if you want to look that up, it's McKenna Reiley, if you want to Google and find out more about what has gone on over the past months. Now, I probably would have talked about this anyway, but this is one of those situations where, we do disappearances here. And we hear a lot of unusual stories, but McKenna's is unusual. I really wonder, had she not, very sad. She's deceased. Very sad. I have to wonder, had she not been found and her disappearance had gone for a year, And we would have had a chance to cover her disappearance on an episode of Unfound if we would have had a chance to talk about the fact that here she was naked at a construction site, and a police officer showed up, and that police officer allowed her to drive home. Even though the police officer admits, like it said, it seems like she was on something, was having a mental health crisis and everything else. He shows up at this construction site. There's a nude woman there, and he allows her to get back in her car and drive home. Even as a guy who does disappearances for a living, this is probably one of the more unusual stories that I've heard recently. I even have it written in my notes here. That is some dang fine police work that got done there. I mean, that is disgusting. Woman in a crisis, nude, paranoid, having some sort of mania, something going on, and the officer just allows her to drive home. Now, I have to admit, and it's right here in the news story, and it's multiple news stories. This isn't verified. That is what happened. I have a question for all of you. Am I crazy in thinking, now granted, I realize that she was found. I realize that she was found deceased. But am I crazy in thinking that that might not be what happened? I wonder. I mean, I have to start thinking, we hear about a lot of shoddy, SHODDY, police work on Unfound. But I don't know if we've experienced something like this, where a person who eventually went missing, who eventually got covered on Unfound, had some sort of interaction with a police officer and having some sort of mental episode brought on by drugs or whatever. And the police officer let this person go. I don't know. Nothing really jumps out to me right at this second. But this is bad. This is really, really bad. Not just for her safety, but everybody else who was on the road in Portland at the time, of allowing a woman who is not in her right mind just get in her car and drive away. This is why I'm saying, am I crazy to think this isn't what happened? Now, neighbors, it's in this article too, as well. Neighbors say that when they thought they heard mechanic come home and heard the slamming of two car doors, not one car door, two car doors. Now, by itself, I don't know if that's suspicious or not. I just went shopping this evening. I came back. I usually put my groceries in the back seat, so I slam my door, and then I go back, take the groceries out, slam that door. But I'm by myself. So, I'm just wondering what kind of police officer would admit doing this. I mean, I think what I'm saying here is that if this is really what happened, the rest of us here in the public would like to know that police officers are just allowing paranoid people, manic people, people on drugs to just get in their cars and drive away. I think the public, we really need to know that. And it's such a crazy story. Why would the police officer admit to that? Unless Why would he admit to allowing a distressed woman to drive home? Unless the actual story is worse. See, this is what pops into my mind. This is a bad story. This makes this police officer look bad. But this is the story that got out. But why would you own up to that? Unless, could it be something else happened? I think it's worth looking into. Like I said, I didn't get a lot of details today from her being found. Like I'll have to go in and check the map to see if it's conceivable that she did get home and then she walked off. But I'm telling you, if her house is like 10 miles from where she was found, here's what I think I know. She didn't walk that. She did not walk that. So what is everybody here in the chat saying? People still talking about Aaliyah's disappearance. Fine by me. Stacy says that's insane. Deborah says he should be fired. Hello, Patty. What's going on? Twinkle says that is one lazy police officer. Rockford says, as your idea is not crazy at all. Think of how bad the interaction between the officer and her could have been to lead him to go with that story. Right. Thank you, Rockford. Betty makes you wonder for sure. Hello, Facebook user. And Deborah says, because he killed her. And then Nephew Charles says, perhaps cops avoid dealing with crazy people. And very well could be, Charles. Very well could be. I see you, Cherie. I see you. You're not being seen on the stream, but I see you. Hello. Wave to me, Cherie. Okay. If you don't know, Cherie, as the moderator, has access to the same account I use with StreamYard. And sometimes her camera works. And even though you can't see her, I can see her. And that's funny. Okay. Puma says perhaps another Ted Bundy. Okay, Puma. It just seemed, perhaps cops avoiding dealing with crazy people. That's one way, I guess, to avoid, could he not call an ambulance? Could he not call an ambulance? Could he not have driven her home? I mean, what does he think? It's hard for me to think. And I realize that, police are used to dealing with homeless people who act the same way. But she wasn't homeless. She had a car there. And I'm guessing also, dare I say it, she didn't look like a homeless person. He allows her to get back in her car and drive away. Honest to God. I mean, really. So, this is probably a story that I'm going to have to follow up on once I see where she was actually found. But there you go. Hello, Robin. Yeah, Belinda Blaine. Yeah, of course, Robin. How are you? What's going on? I realize for all you Facebook people, it doesn't identify who you are. It just says Facebook user. But Robin, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Betty, either way, the officer killed her or totally ignored a woman having some kind of episode to risk her life and many others. Yep. He should have done more. Had he done more, I'm guessing she wouldn't be deceased now, or maybe she might be deceased because of this officer. It just seems like an odd choice. I think the police owe the public an explanation for this. Is this common practice when they come upon people who are acting like this, that they just let these people get back in their cars and go out and drive on the public roads? I think we should know. Crazy. Stacy says, you don't leave a naked woman in a construction site. True. Teresa, sorry you had to see that in my PJs. And that's fine. That's fine, Sheree. Just kind of cracked me up. Good to see you. Okay, Robin. Or it was a construction worker. We all know their reputation. Well, let's not be stereotypical, Puma. Let's not be like that. Great to see you and listen to your podcast. Thank you, Robin. Good to see you. The police do ignore crazy people, and sometimes it's practical. In many areas of many cities, you can't be a cop and address every bizarre situation. Still, this seems to be a different level. It does. And you're right, Patricia. Tomorrow does mark 8 years since Aaliyah went missing. You're right. It's very sad. Twinkle, wonder how old he is. If he's been on the force for many years, he may be doing as little as possible. Didn't want to deal with the paperwork and all the trouble with doing something with her. Yeah, how would he have liked doing the paperwork had she gone down the street and got into a head-on, by going through a stoplight? Melody says accountability. Yeah, mental health is not a priority, and that's a problem. That's true, Betty. So, if you've not heard about her disappearance, it seems like for some reason it has kind of made a little bit of national news. So I urge you to go to Google or your favorite search engine and do a search for McKenna Riley, Mekenna, and then Riley, Reiley, and read up on this and see what you think. Remember what happened to the girl in California that released her during the night with no car, no way to get anywhere? About a year later, she was found dead. Yeah, that was Matrice Richardson, Charlotte. Yeah, Matrice. Matrice Richardson is what I think you're talking about, Charlotte. We did not ever cover her disappearance. I think it got solved even before Unfound ever got started. But yes, that did kind of raise a stink. She had been acting strangely at a restaurant. The police did come and get her. They brought her to the headquarters, and then they let her go. But, she wasn't driving. And, to me, this seems way more egregious than Matrice Richardson, even though Matrice's doesn't exactly make you feel very good either. Yes, Charlotte, I know that area well. Definitely some poor judgment at the police station. I don't buy any conspiracy theory. Jeffrey's is an excellent restaurant if you're ever in the area. That's where Matrice Richardson was, right? Yeah, she had not paid her bill at the restaurant. Thank you for reminding me of that, Kathy. So there's a situation like that. I have to admit that I never thought there was any foul play regarding Matrice Richardson's disappearance. But to me, this one sounds worse than that. But that's me. So you can check that out. You want to bring it up in the discussion group on Facebook or email me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com to let me know what you think. Let me know. And wrong on 2 accounts. Don't worry about it, Shree. We're allowed to make mistakes here. All right, moving on to this is a topic that I wanted to cover last week as well, and did not get to it. Charlotte is saying her mom had asked them to call her and she would come and get her. Yeah, Matrice Richardson. Yeah. Okay. All right, here we go again is the title of this. Nearly 36 sunken cars have been discovered at the bottom of a lake in Doral, Florida by a pair of crime-solving divers. Now, you know why I'm talking about this, due to what happened just right near me while I was up in Pennsylvania with that. Remember the whole thing about the Chevy Vega and Peggy and Patty McDaniel, how quickly we forget. But WSVN spoke to the divers Ken Fleming and Doug Bishop after they found 32 different cars purposely dumped in a murky lake near the Miami International Airport. The diving duo often volunteers their time to search for cars ditched in various bodies of water. Through their efforts, the team has found 60 submerged cars statewide. We're here trying to solve missing persons cold cases. I'm going to come back to that, as you can imagine. When we discover a spot like this with multiple vehicles, it pretty much indicates that a crime has been committed where they're disposing the vehicles and hiding them from law enforcement. Fleming said they hope, Fleming said they hope to find valuable clues inside the vehicles. We have a case where someone drove from Pinellas County down to pick up their relatives at the airport, and then they disappeared, said Fleming. So in this spot, we're near the airport. It's a large body of water. It has easy access to get into, so we would target that as a potential foul play spot. Doral police have been aware of the find and are working with the drivers to remove the cars from the lake. It's about providing answers for families when they don't have them, offered Bishop. Departments respectively have to justify their use of resources, and when a case goes cold, we have the ability to step in. We don't have to justify our use of resources, and we can eliminate the drag on personnel locally. We can do this. We specialize in it. We can do it on a high level, and we do so as volunteers. Here's what I think I know. Not one of those cars they're going to find in that lake is connected to a missing persons case at all. Not one. That is my guess. Nothing against these guys, but they're the ones, we do this, we specialize in it, we can do it at a high level. They can certainly do the scuba diving at a high level, but when it comes to missing persons cases, here's what I would tell them. You find 30 cars in a lake, the odds of any of those being connected to a disappearance are zero, just about zero. Whereas if you only find one car in a lake, then it has a better chance of maybe being connected to a missing persons case. Obviously it's a dumping ground for cars. So what are the odds that there's people who are committing insurance fraud and they're dumping these cars in this lake and then filing a claim saying somebody stole my car, and then at the same time a murderer puts a car in that same lake? What are the odds of that? Pretty unlikely. Pretty unlikely. In addition, we know at least some of these, of course, going back to Esther Westenbarger, where it's an accident. Do you really think that a bunch of people are going to ditch their cars for insurance reasons or whatever in the very same lake where people could easily just drive off the road, and wreck and drown like Esther Westenbarger did? No, because they don't want these cars to be found. So they're not just going to put them in a lake that's right beside a road somewhere. So I realize that you, the public, think very highly of these divers, and certainly there has been some nice work done. Certainly. But it doesn't help that, for me, I realize that the reason they're going down there is because they're skilled scuba divers. I don't want any of these people to die. I realize this is very dangerous. If you get caught, you get down there and you get snagged or something and you get stuck down there and everything, obviously dangerous. But I wish, if I had to pick a choice, I'd rather these people be experts at disappearances and just good scuba divers than good scuba divers and uneducated in disappearances. I wish they were better at understanding disappearances than they were at scuba divers. I think that would help everybody out. Because why? Because they jump to conclusions. And here's what I also know. The reason this has suddenly become a thing, let's just admit it. The reason this has all become now a thing is because of Adventures with Purpose. That's why. And that means that these people aren't doing it for the altruistic reasons that they portray. The reason they're doing this is no different than the gold rush. People going out to Oregon in 1849 to find gold. They're not going out there for altruistic reasons. No, they're going out there to find gold. This is kind of what I think about these people. And when they talk, they show that they really have not educated themselves in disappearances, then just makes me think more, these people are just in it so they can have a YouTube channel. Because if they were really serious about disappearances, what happened north of me up in that canal up there when they found that Vega, it wouldn't have happened. They would have gone down in there, they would have found that car, and they would have kept their lips shut. Likewise here, these guys, if they were really in it for solving disappearances, they wouldn't say a word about finding 30 cars in that lake until those cars had been identified. That's what good, responsible people do. But they just can't help getting themselves in the media. They just can't help it. And dare I say, and I'll say this before, once again, I understand some of these people have done good work. I also know that if YouTube didn't exist, none of these people would be doing anything. If they didn't think that they could make videos out of it and everything, none of these people would be doing any of this, even though they've known how to scuba for probably decades. And I think the day this all, if it ever does, maybe it never will, that if this ever dries up the money for all of this, then they'll go on to move on to something else. That's what I think. I just, once again, I think maybe you've learned about me. I'm a cynic. I know that I am a total cynic on all of this. And you may say, Ed, well, yeah, Ed, you make money doing your podcast. That's true. But I think that I'm actually trying to learn things, and I'm actually trying to educate the public. And of course, I've devoted my time on my own dime to go to schools and speak to criminal justice majors and everything else regarding this. I don't think any of these people are doing that. I'm not going to necessarily say they're more. They're certainly doing good, but the way they handle the media, they continue to mislead the public on what actually is going on, and that doesn't help anybody. So that they would automatically, we're out there trying. Well, what do you say? They found 60 cars. Have they solved any disappearances finding these 60 cars yet? It doesn't sound like that. You know how I know? Because I think if they had, it would have been mentioned in this article. They surely would have mentioned it. And, what I would tell these guys, if any of them are listening, I know they're probably hating me right now. You have to realize that of disappearance as a whole, however many unsolved disappearances you think are out there, whether it's 50,000, 75,000, 100,000, the percentage of those that include missing cars with a person is like 3%. I mean, it's 3% that needs to be solved, but that just should show them how likely it is that they're going to run into a car that is connected to a missing persons case. And what I also don't like about them is they only publicize like Adventures with Purpose. They only publicize their successes. They don't publicize all their failures. And once again, that gives the public an inaccurate idea about what's going on out here. And I hate that because we're all about realism here at Unfound. Let me see what everybody is saying here. Still talking about Matrice and they're talking about that. Did they have any specific missing persons case in mind? Twinkle, none that is mentioned in this particular article. They mention about somebody who drove down to Miami and never showed up to pick people up at the airport or something. I have no idea what disappearance this is. I'll probably have to Google, or I don't know. I don't, maybe we get lucky just using some particular Google search words or something, Twinkle, maybe to figure out what that one is. But I don't know. They're probably stolen cars dropped by joyriders. Mark, I agree. Were there any bodies in any of the cars? Obviously not in the first 60 that they've discovered, or they would have mentioned it here. And like I said, they've found 30, and they're already publicizing that they found 30 cars. We don't know if anybody. They're talking about missing persons cases. It's not even proven that any of these cars have any bodies in them yet. This is what I mean. This is what I mean. They're using this for marketing. If you're volunteers, why are you marketing yourselves? If you're doing this for free, what's so important about the media attention? Think about that. Thank you, everything. Still talking about Matrice. All for money they do. They collect rewards. That may be it as well. Everything. Like I said, I realize that some good work has been done. And I realize there are some families that are out there that are thankful that people, started getting into this. But all of these people have a lot to learn about disappearances. If they're going to make disappearances their business, then they should know about them. I've made disappearances my business. And we talked about education, a little earlier. What do I learn? I'm trying to learn things every day. It's obviously me. These people aren't. They're just going out and scuba diving. They're the ones that made this their business. They're going to do that. It should be no different than engineers and pilots and teachers and musicians and everything else. Learn about the actual topic. Lisa says, about 2 years ago, my 15-year-old went to a party and 2 trucks ended up in the lake. I didn't ask how. We probably think we know how. Lisa, you should know that I played at a disc golf tournament in Daytona Beach years ago, and a guy I know pretty well put a golf cart in a lake at the golf course. All right, Charlotte's leaving. All right, Charlotte, good seeing you. Bishop worked with Jared. Enough said. Oh, did he? And Jared is from Adventures with Purpose, and Jared has been accused of some very bad things. Okay. Betty says that's the perfect point. Misleading the public. So much of that happens that you never know who to trust. I'll say it again. I think that they're out there, that they're doing this is good. But every time any of these people open their mouths, I cringe. I just cringe. I do. But I'm pretty sure all those 30 cars, they're not going to find one. Maybe they'll solve some stolen car reports. I'm not saying maybe those need solved too. Maybe they've happened upon some huge car theft ring in Miami or something. Excellent. Fantastic. But they're the ones who bring up missing persons cases. And I think anybody who knows anything about missing persons cases, when they go down into the water and they see 30 cars, they should be thinking the odds of us finding any bodies in any of these is very low. So I shouldn't even bring it up. In fact, maybe we just get the police out here and we not talk to the media at all. How about that? Does that ever cross their minds? No, because they're in it for the attention. All right. All right. Kathy and Rockford still going back and forth about North, NoCal, and SoCal. All right. Very good. So that was an article it's coincidentally from here in Florida, but you can Google it, and it has to do with a lake in Doral, Florida, which I guess is down there near Miami, down in Dr. Telesco land. Okay. Next story. This is another missing woman. I think. Hold on a second. Let me make sure I got it here. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. No, 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 no. All right, all right, this one. Okay, I'll do another Florida story. This is coincidental. Sarasota County, Florida. That is the county directly south of me. Disc golf there, down there quite a few times. Female skeletal remains found in a shallow grave in Florida in 2007 were identified, and detectives are looking for the woman's husband as a person of interest. DNA testing and genetic genealogy advancements helped authorities identify Gina Burris in 2022. First name Jeana, and then Burris, Burrus. The investigation into the circumstances surrounding Gina's death remained cold until DNA testing identified Gina. Gina, who lived in Sarasota, Florida, was never reported missing. Once again, I'll read that again. Gina, who lived in Sarasota, Florida, was never reported missing in the 15 years since her remains were found. Authorities stated Wednesday, this would be a couple weeks ago now, that they're looking for Gina's husband, James Burris, and anybody familiar with Gina or James. Gina's remains were found in a wooded area in Sarasota County. Sheriff's officials determined that Gina was 39 years old at the time of her death. Gina was living in the 6200 block of Pauline Avenue in Sarasota. I didn't look this up on a map. With her husband and son, James Burris, but it stands to reason I've been closer. I've been all over Sarasota. Authorities stated Gina was unemployed while her husband worked at a local body shop in the 5600 block of Sarah Avenue in Sarasota. Her son attended Gulfgate Elementary School between 2005 and 2006. Gina's whereabouts were not questioned because her family never reported her missing. The couple lived in Citrus County, Florida, and Frederick, Maryland, prior to moving to Sarasota County. The sheriff's office is asking anyone who may have known either Gina or James Burris, or who has information regarding her death, to the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office, Detective Brian Ing at 941-861-4900. Now, of course, when I say family, I guess all of us are already thinking, well, we cannot come up with a pretty good reason why James didn't report her missing, right? We can come to a very quick conclusion about why he didn't report her missing. But does she not have parents? Did she not have siblings? Did she not have friends? It makes you wonder. Because she's not, like it says, she's not on Amos, not on the Charlie Project. So why didn't her family report her missing? In addition, if her family maybe was wondering where she was at the time, what story did her husband tell? And keep in mind, the most important part, she was actually found in 2007. So she was found probably not long after she went missing, but she wasn't identified till now. So the remains have been sitting somewhere in Sarasota County for over 15 years. And only now did they get DNA to put this all together. Unfortunately, in this article, and I couldn't find this anywhere else, what changed? Did the DNA just get collected recently? Well, if nobody knew that she was missing, then why was the DNA collected? Is this one of those things like 23andMe or Autham or something where people are just doing their genealogy or something and there's just a lucky hit or something? I just don't know. But I wonder what changed between 2007 and now. Now, you should know, in this article, it says they're looking for James. I tracked him down. He's living in Westminster, Maryland. He's right there in one of the databases. It's certainly he. So I'm hoping in the last couple of weeks, they also have tracked him down. Authorities have tracked him down to kind of go through, well, we found your wife. She's deceased. She was found out in the woods. Would you care to explain why she was never reported missing or anything? But these things happen. And of course, we can't help but think bad things. We think foul play-ish type of things when we hear about this. I would certainly like to know more about this, but really there hasn't been a ton of information out there. So once again, if you want to look that story up, it's Gina Burris, Jea, like the way you would not spell Gina, Jeana Burris, Burrus. If you want to Google that, and maybe you'll find some things that I haven't found. So what's everybody saying about this? Betty says divers also give false hope to the loved ones of the missing. They do. They're making it look too easy. Cass Stacy says, is this the one where she was never reported missing? It is. Everything sends. I wonder what her son was told about her, where she is. Good question. Everything. Very, very good question. Thank you for thinking of that one. And Stacy says, it's so crazy. Only here in Florida. Yeah, we do have the whole Florida man syndrome, right, Stacy? We certainly do. I guess I am a Florida man, I guess, in very general terms. All right, I now want to go to this other question. And this actually comes to Unfound from Australia. And I've seen this person in the chat before, although I don't think she is in tonight. And this comes from The Real, is her stage name, I guess. And she would like me to answer this question. And it has to do with age difference. When you come across cases involving relationships that are notable in this way, meaning age difference, big age difference, but it's wildly inappropriate to address that head on these days, how do you approach it? Am I being shallow, or is this very much a piece of the puzzle in such cases, possibly even the biggest piece? The Real, if you're out there, you're probably not watching right now, and that's totally fine. But when you get to this or listen to it, is it wildly inappropriate to address? Is it? We had this discussion in the being that Ilea and her girlfriend Kim were such, big age difference. We had this conversation. Of course, the think tank is very private and everything, but I brought it up there. I don't think it's wildly inappropriate, and I don't think it's wildly inappropriate here. As a 53-year-old guy who's been around the block a few times, and although I'm not married, I have done my share of dating. I am a straight guy, I will tell you that, there's nothing morally, legally, or ethically wrong with big age differences in relationships. I think it's just a little icky. And I think it really depends on when the two met, how old the two are when they met. And, that's a big consideration. Going back to what was the disappearance? Bianca Carrasco. You have to remember, she's 16. She ended up getting married at 16, and her husband was 29. Now, a 13-year age difference is a big deal at that point. Whereas I'm 53. If I were to start dating a 40-year-old, I just don't think that's big. That's big of a deal. Now, for me personally, as an individual, would I date a 40-year-old woman? Probably, but I would start wondering, about compatibility and things, and that would be important to me. Can we talk about the same movies and the same music and things like that? For other guys, maybe they might not care. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, if you know what I mean. And as I've said oftentimes, as I've said many times when I hear about some old guy dating a young woman, it's a nice gig if you can get it. Of course, I'm joking around the same way. And I've dated women older than I have too. So don't, I've dated a woman who was 11 years older. I've dated a woman who was 8 years older. I've dated a woman who was 5 years older, but I also dated a woman who was 8 years younger. All over the map for me. But certainly with like Bianca Carrasco, she's 16, he's 29, 13 years difference. It's like they're like 50 years difference. Whereas a 53-year-old and a 40-year-old, I don't know. So that matters. So it's just not age. It's when they it's just, it depends on where they started. And I think, to me, to answer this question, this is where the problem starts. To me, when people, doesn't matter who's older in the relationship, but you start dating somebody who's young, who has a lot of growing up to do, and then that person actually really does start to grow up. And I don't mean physically, I mean mentally, I mean emotionally. That's when the problems start. The physical stuff, it's a whole different topic. But when it comes to when young people start thinking of themselves as individuals, I think is when problems start. In my opinion, this could have happened with Kim and Ilea. I certainly believe that it happened with Bianca and her husband. So that's kind of the way I figured it. And it does seem to me, my perception is that you get into those types of relationships, the odds of those relationships lasting as long as people who are closer in age, I think the odds are lower. On the other hand, look at most of the disappearances that we've covered, where let's just admit we suspect a boyfriend or a husband. Most of those people are very close in age. So I just don't know if statistically I can come to a conclusion. But if you start telling me that a woman went missing and her husband or girlfriend or wife was 15 years older, and when they started dating, the younger one was 20, and then she goes missing when she's 27, and especially if the facts go along with my perceptions, then yeah, I'm going to start thinking that the older person in the relationship did something. Yes, I am. So what's everybody? So she's asking me, how do I talk about this? This is how I talk about this. It's everyone's, let me see here. I got to go up further. Lisa says, I feel like age is if it's a huge difference, it's an important fact. Personal experience with my younger ex. It's everyone's own morals. It is. Probably the same spill. Mom run off. Why not? My ex, when I was 18, he was 40. That's certainly something, Deborah. Once again, I'm not here to get in the way of relationships, but this is just my perception of it. Once again, I don't have any statistics to back it up. And like I've always also said, most of the disappearances that we've covered along these lines, whether it's Ellen Sloan, Rosemary Rapp, Julie Early, these people were all pretty close in age. So maybe it doesn't matter. But it is certainly a consideration. So, like going back to Bianca with her husband, had they been the same age, maybe she still goes missing. If Kim and Ilea, maybe Ilea still goes missing. Of course, if we knew what happened, we could just go solve them right now. But it does stick out to me, especially in heterosexual relationships, because I will tell you my perception as a straight guy, that any guy that I've known in my life who was dating a woman that was much younger than he was, I always thought this guy must be a huge control freak. Just me. So this is just a straight guy talking. That is my perceptions as a straight guy. Like when I say age, 20 years, like I said, I dated a woman 11 years older. Was she a control freak? Kinda. My ex is enjoying this too much. Just told me that I need to watch my blank. Thanks a lot for planting the seed, Ed, in the reel. Maybe I need to listen with earbuds from now on. Why did I laugh when you said icky? It's not a word I use very often, but it's just one of those things that there's nothing morally, legally, ethically wrong with, as we want to use Deborah as an example, a 40-year-old dating an 18-year-old, at least not in the United States. And we know there are many places in the world where grown men are marrying 10-year-olds. Okay. I'm just here to talk about American culture and the laws here. But legally, morally, ethically, nothing wrong with a 40-year-old dating an 18-year-old. But I will tell you, I find it icky. I find it icky. I guess there's no accounting for taste. Exactly. 100% on the person needs to grow. It's maturity. The real, in this case, I'm looking at, I think the age difference of more than 20 years. Oh, there's real. Hey, real, what's going on? I didn't know if you were in here or not. That's how I approach the topic. Deborah says he's probably dead by now anyway. You didn't cause that, did you, Deborah? Patricia says, my first husband I started dating at 17. He was 27. We got married 5 years later. Okay. Depends on the age gap. Then 4 years later, he was killed in a car accident. Oh my gosh, Patricia. On the age of relationships, is age an important dynamic when talking about disappearances? Yeah, that's what we're talking about, Marcus. I think what we're, kind of saying here is that if you tell me that there's a disappearance where there's a huge age difference, like generational, like 20 years difference, I think about generation, I think 25 years. So if there's like a generational difference of like 25 years, and something happens where it is the man said type of disappearance, I'm automatically going to think it has something to do with the younger person doesn't want to be treated like a child anymore. And the older person just wants things to remain the way they were. And something happens. That's what I'm going to think. Outside of facts leading me in a different direction. Whereas with people who are closer in age, it can certainly run the gamut of why these things happen. Cheating, money issues, accidents, all sorts of things. But when you have these big age differences, what I automatically go to is the younger person wanted to start feeling more like an individual, and the older person wasn't going to let that happen. That's what I think. Hello, Stacy. Hello, Maura. What's up, Fairy? My father wasn't happy. My dad was only 39. Oh my gosh, Deborah. That 40-year-old really must have been a magic man. I think of that Heart song, Deborah. Coffee says, I like younger men, just not that young. You keep liking younger men, Coffee. Betty, do you think the older person in a relationship is the most dominant? when we start talking about a 29 and a 16-year-old, I think that's the way it starts out. It could certainly change, but that depends on the people. But I'm just making a broad characterization here. There's too much of a power dynamic. Yeah, now I'm going to say that's icky. All right, you can use my word, Betty. I allow you to use my word icky. Like I said, because there's nothing morally, ethically, or legally wrong with it. It all comes down to taste. And my taste is that, of course, my taste has shown that I will date women, older than I am, although not, it's 11 years a lot older, maybe. Of course, I was 25, she was 36. And dare I said, I sure as heck had a lot of growing up to do at 25. And, and then I dated a woman who was 8 years old. Now, by the time I got to 32, 33, when that happened, it was a totally different type of Ed then. And I would say that relationship, even though there was 8 years difference, was a lot more equal than the previous one. And then the woman that I dated was 8 years younger. I would say that one was pretty equal too, because by that time I was, I would have been 38 and she was like 30. But really, okay, Patricia, I was 42 and he was 40. I was 42 and he was 33. Big difference. Can be. Depends on a lot of things, but it's a very interesting topic, but this is something where it plays a role in disappearances. It certainly does. And dare I say, we might even think about it this way. And this kind of, this might kind of go along with like Angela Green's disappearance. Remember, Angela Green was not an American citizen, at least when she met her husband. She was actually Chinese. Remember that? I also might think about this kind of way, once again, as an American. If you're Australian or wherever else you're listening to this or watching this tonight, you can speak for your own culture. But it seems to me there's also a lot of inequality in a relationship when an American man marries a woman from another country and brings her to the United States where she doesn't know anybody. I mean, we know mail order brides exist. They exist to this day. You can go to all sorts of countries, American men to go all sorts of countries out there and have a woman waiting for them to bring back to the United States. That's also another situation where there, at least to start, there's a huge inequality there. It's his culture. She probably does speak English, but maybe it's not her first language. He knows all the area. He knows all the customs of the United States, and all these things, the laws and everything. And then this woman just, gets plucked down here in the United States. And the only one person she knows is her husband. Huge inequality. Now that surely can change. Surely can change. She, starts getting a job, makes friends and everything. It can start to get close. But once again, as a straight guy, I start wondering about these guys that do this. Why would you do that? Why would you marry a woman who doesn't have any friends here? Why would you do that? The United States has 330 million people, and half of them are 160 million of them are females. And of that 160, I'm going to say 120 million of them are at least 18. And, and probably 80 million of them are 30 and over. I'm just picking out some stats. And you can't find an American woman. No, you have to go buy one in another country. It says something to me as a straight mature man. So, once again, nothing legally, ethically, or morally wrong with it. It just is kind of icky to me. It, like I said, guys know guys, and it just kind of starts telling me something about that guy, and it's nothing good. That's me. So you never know what we're going to run into on this live show. It's it's a spectacular question. I think that the question is relevant to disappearances, not that much, but it has played a role. I mean, just within the last few months with Bianca Carrasco, of course, recently with Ilea Boomer, and I'm sure if we went back through Unfound's catalog of disappearances, we also have other disappearances where there were big age differences. Let's see what everybody... Cherie says, men just take longer to mature. Maybe we never mature, Cherie. Everybody's talking back and forth. There you go. Near Pittsburgh. Betty says, I married a man 12 years older, dated one 8 years younger, and one the same age. Not much difference. She kind of averaged it all out, everything, kind of like I did. Went a little older, a little younger. In the end, it all kind of averages out. Maybe they just like to try before they buy it. Oh, my goodness, everything. You just wrote that. American Woman, good song it is. The funny thing, it's by a Canadian band, though, Stacy. Miranda, Ed and I were in Pennsylvania, though, not together. Yeah, I did not see you, Miranda. Puma says, this is very interesting. Most that has been said is the opposite of my situation. I'm younger. I'm the dominant one. If anyone was to disappear, it won't be me. All right, we'll remember that, Puma. Rockford says, for California geography to age differences in relationships, we cover a lot of ground here, don't we? We do. Disappearances are certainly, you could say, a cultural thing, Rockford. Certainly. There is a cultural component to it. I think maybe Rockford, I even touched upon that when I did that Unfound now regarding a famous Chinese businessman who went missing in China. We didn't go missing. The government disappeared him. So certainly talking about disappearances in China is different than talking about disappearances in the United States. Talking probably about disappearances in the Middle East is different, given that women have virtually no rights in the Middle East. Certainly talking about disappearances of women in the Middle East is going to be different than talking about disappearances in the United States or most Western cultures. Talking even about disappearances in Mexico, given all of the problems they have down there with the drug gangs and all of that, certainly is different than talking about disappearances in the United States. It's fascinating. And, a topic that Assistant Eric and I have happened upon a couple times, even when we're talking about disappearances in the United States, you could be presented the same a certain facts here in 2023 and think something in particular. But if you were presented with those same particular facts for a disappearance of 1968, let's say, you'd think something else. And this came up with my assistant Eric because of Donna, when he was originally a guest, Donna Mikolenko, where it was said that Donna would disappear even though she was a mother and married. She would, quote unquote, go away once in a while. What's believed back at the time that maybe she was going to some sort of psychiatric hospital or something like that. Whereas here, and that was like 1968. Whereas if you hear that today, if you hear that about a mother married who kind of goes out of touch once in a while, we don't think psychiatric stuff. What do we think? We think drugs. And that just shows you how even in the same country, presented with the same facts, but in two different eras, you're going to think two different things. This kind of stuff, fascinating to me. Fascinating. So we do cover a lot of ground here, Rockford. And Ferry says his mom went to my college, Duquesne, and his dad went to my other hometown, Slippery Rock. Yep, that's true. My mother, Loretta Densel, was a music major at Duquesne. She graduated in 1962. And my dad was an education major at Slippery Rock. I think it was Slippery Rock College at the time. And he graduated from Slippery Rock in my dad was very young. My dad didn't turn 18 until he was already a freshman in college. So he graduated college, I think, in 1956. But there was only 4 years difference between my mother and my father. It's just my dad got put into school like way early. But yeah, that's where they went to school. And I think I've only been on the Duquesne campus once, and I've been on the Slippery Rock campus probably 100 times, if not more. Rockford says, speaking of China, I did a semester abroad at the same university in Nanjing where that now rather infamous, horrible disappearance murder occurred. It happened 3 years after I was there. Wow. Okay. And Patricia says, it blew my mind when I heard Aaliyah Boomer was 27 and her significant other, Kim, was 57. Them cat fights can be extreme. Look at you, Patricia. Okay, so there we go. We got on the topic of age differences. Great question. The real, it's a fantastic question when we talk about the topic for like over 20 minutes. Do I want to cover anything else? Maybe one more thing, and it has to do with this judge. Did you see how this California judge murdered his wife? A California judge was arrested on August 3rd after allegedly killing his wife in their Anaheim home, allegedly admitted to the shooting in a text message to court staff. Orange County Superior Court Judge Jeffrey Ferguson, 72, allegedly killed his wife, Cheryl Ferguson, 65. So only 7 years difference. During an argument while he was drunk in their Anaheim home, police first received reports of a shooting shortly before 8 p.m., just minutes after the alleged shooting. According to prosecutors, Ferguson texted his court clerk and bailiff, I just lost it. I just shot my wife. I won't be in tomorrow. I will be in custody. I'm so sorry. Ferguson and his wife were arguing at a restaurant on the night of the murder. And once they got home, the argument continued. And his wife allegedly said something similar to, why don't you just point a real gun at me? Be careful what you ask for. You might just get it. Ferguson then pulled a pistol out and shot his wife in the chest. The couple's adult son called 911 and told the operator that his father had been drinking too much when he shot his mother. Ferguson was arrested and released on $1 million bail. Prosecutors are seeking new bail conditions to both ensure public safety and make sure Ferguson doesn't attempt to flee. Authorities found 47 weapons. Even I think that's a lot. And over 26,000 rounds of ammunition in the home, which were legally owned. A rifle belonging to Ferguson is missing. Ferguson has been in his position since 2015. He has been charged with murder with weapons-related enhancements. See, this is how quickly something like this can happen. Now, it sounds to me like this judge had a drinking problem. Just the way the story's written, probably has had this problem for a while. He's in his 70s. People generally do not take on drinking problems in their 60s. This is usually a long time coming. And I'm going to guess that these two had fought like this before. And this time it went that one step further. And if you know, this is what in my mind, you're free to think what you want. Whatever comes into your mind regarding all of this is up to you. But this is kind of what comes into my mind when I think about all of those disappearances for, once again, the man said type of disappearance. Man and woman are at home. Woman disappears. Her car is still there. Clothes still there. Phone's there. Purse there. ID still. Everything's still there. And then the guy says, you know what? I just don't know what happened. This is the kind of situation that I visualize in my head. That something was going on, might have been drunk, might have been drugs, might have been nothing at all. And something goes that one step further, and the guy kills the woman. Now, with this guy, he owned up to it. In fact, he owned up to it pretty quickly. And I don't know if I'm supposed to thank him or anything, but it's good to see that he had a conscience about it. I did this. It's wrong. It's horrible. On and on and on. At least he didn't try to get away with it. And it sounds to me, at least from the story I read here, I'm guessing what happened is exactly as he portrayed. And I once again give him all the credit in the world. He certainly deserves to go to jail for the rest of his life. But that he owned up to it, didn't go on the run, didn't hide her body, didn't come up with some crazy thing. Oh, yeah, she shot herself or whatever. I give him a lot of credit. And it tells me probably, this is just a decent guy. And, he just, I'm guessing he now feels horrible about it. Whereas the difference would be, though, I on all these disappearances we've covered on Unfound, I don't think these guys feel horrible at all. So, and I do have it in my notes here. What if the judge's wife had gone missing? He would have said, yeah, we got home, went to bed, got up, she was gone. I think we'd probably still be thinking that the judge did something. Well, guess what? The judge did do something. So, like I said, I was going to read this story last week. Didn't get to it. So this is from a few weeks ago. But if you're ever wondering what's in my head for these types of disappearances, this is what I visualize. A couple getting home and something happened. But of course, for our disappearances, then the guy goes to the lengths to cover everything up. Let me see here. 47 weapons, Patricia said. I don't even own a weapon. You maybe should, Patricia. Rockford, Ed, it may be helpful to note that it did not occur in Anaheim, but rather Anaheim Hills. Separate town and a world of difference. Anaheim is known as Anacrime, Anaheim Hills. I'm just reading the story, Rockford. Ferry, have you ever looked into Lindsay Baum, 10-year-old girl who went missing from Clear, Washington? Her remains were found, but no suspects. Ferry, we only covered disappearances that are unsolved. That her remains were found would then rule her out to being covered on Unfound. Shelly asks, I don't know if this is pertinent, but may be too personal. You don't have to answer. Just wondering if you have another job. I do not. This is all that I do, Shelly. I laughed when you said about the judge. He's probably a decent guy. That's so me. Decent people also do horrible things. They do, Lisa. Of course they do. That doesn't necessarily mean they kill people, but you know what? Nice people cut people off in traffic too. So there you go. One more thing before I get to Friday's episode. I just want to give a shout out to the host of Detective Perspective. His name is Derek, who I guess mentioned me and Unfound several times recently on his podcast due to the work, the coverage that we gave, the disappearance of Justin Gaines. And so, Derek, if you hear this, I appreciate you with the compliments and thinking I did a good job in interviewing Justin's mother for that episode. It seems like it's yesterday. It's been a couple years now. So I had several people contacting me about how Derek mentioned Unfound and myself. So Derek, thank you so much for that. All right, this Friday, we're going to Louisiana. Unfound has gone to Louisiana a lot over the years. But we're going to West Monroe. We're going to be covering the disappearance of Donnie Atkins II. He disappeared on September 2nd, 2018, and his sister Carmen is the guest. What you're going to hear about, Donnie had some issues. He had only been out of jail for about 5 months, was trying to get his life in order, seemed to have gotten a pretty decent job. And on the day of his disappearance, he wanted to come over to Carmen's, but she was having a birthday party, I think, for one of her children. So there were a bunch of like little girls there. And she goes, you know, Donnie probably shouldn't come over. So he decided to go to somebody else's house. And the guy was there that eventually said that Donnie walked out the door, never to be seen again. But it's curious because somebody was continued to check Donnie's voicemail weeks after he went missing. So you want to start looking that up. Donnie Atkins II, West Monroe, Louisiana, September 2nd, 2018. So we're coming up on the 5th anniversary. And his sister Carmen will be the guest. So that's all I got for tonight. Thank you for all the great conversation tonight. And you never know we're going to get into this live show. That's why everybody should be listening to it. And thank you for all of that. Kristen, thank you for the generous contribution tonight. Please consider supporting Unfound at patreon.com/Unfound Podcast, or at PayPal, or hit the join button below if you're on YouTube. And Lisa's taking us out with something from Henry David Thoreau. And I'm just going to stick to what Sheree has already written. Everybody, please keep your heads on swivels out there. Be aware of your surroundings. Don't be a victim. Good night. Say hi to the boys, to me, Charlie. Good night.